What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me we have some more RPG horror stories. I know I've been gone for a few days, actually more than a few days. I gotta drop the character for a little bit. 2024 can't end soon enough. I am so sick and tired of this year. A bunch of health related stuff and health emergencies to drama and then more drama and then more drama. And then all this stress. There's been so many negative events for me this year and it's just so much stress. But now that I'm feeling a little bit better, I'm still kind of iffy. I want to get back to some RPG horror stories because listen, we only have a few days before the month is over and I want to try to spend it pleasant and enjoyable instead of stressed. So we're gonna get to the first RPG horror story for today. DM misinterprets the monsters know what they're doing, leading to my cleric getting dogpiled. This happened to me a while ago, but I still think about it because of how bizarre this little incident felt. A few years back, I co-founded a college D&D group. We had a couple of games on campus before we started hosting off-campus, but before then, we ran a couple of one-shots to get everyone accustomed to the game. One of these one-shots was DM'd by the other co-founder, who we'll call Bea. Our characters, all 5th level, were captured by a cult and thrown into a pit to be sacrificed to a bunch of phase spiders and a sentinel tree. My character, a human-life cleric, wanted to focus on doing his job and keeping the party healed up, so I cast Healing Ward on our rogue, who was putting in a lot of work. After this, however, all 3 phase spiders started to gang up on me relentlessly, very quickly dropping me to the single digits. Naturally, I take my action to disengage and have to cast a 3rd level Healing Ward on myself to stay alive. Keep in mind, I'm the only one with healing magic, so we're in a bad spot if I drop to 0. The phase spiders continue to dogpile me, getting me right back down into the single digits. At this point, I straight up ask Bea, why are they only targeting me? Bea responds, they saw you cast Healing Ward, so they know you're a cleric. I read the monsters know what they're doing. Oh, monsters know what they're doing is a book, or like a content book. I've heard of things like Flea Mortals being praised as the ultimate gospel to D&D combat or something like that. It was highly praised by Crispy, and while I never had opportunity to read it, I have seen some very positive reviews. Monsters know what they're doing is a little bit new to me, never heard of that one before, but I'm not against checking it out. Anyway, there's a little bit to the story. Let's see how it wraps up before I give my personal thoughts. Excuse me? These spiders with 6 intelligence know that I'm a cleric, and they know that they need to make sure I'm dead before moving on to the rest of the party. Maybe I'm just petty, but that feels like BS to me. I expressed this to Bea, and thankfully, after a brief, if heated, no thanks to me, discussion, Bea agreed to spread them out a bit more, and the dogpiling stopped. What a weird game of D&D that was. This doesn't really read as an RPG horror story, but it does read as a situation where something happened. The DM made a weird call. Y'all had a discussion, albeit heated, but then the solution is making everybody kind of happy, or at least fair? I don't know. In this situation, if a player is being dogpiled constantly or being targeted by the enemies and not targeting anybody else, I can understand why they wouldn't be so happy. For me personally, when it comes to dealing with any sort of bestial creatures or beasts or monstrosities that don't have a lot of intelligence, I just kind of run them as they see target, they attack target. Woo! Or if they're low health, do they run away? Maybe. Are they by themselves? Then yes. Are they in a team? They'll probably stay and help. When it comes to running monsters and beasts or any kind of creatures in D&D, at least for me, I would say it's just best to defer to what would feel natural for that creature to do. If it was a very hyper-intelligent creature that could strategize, see patterns, and be like, the healer's in the back healing everybody, I'd target the healer, then I guess that makes sense. But a phase spider with 6 intelligence, I think he just cares about, owie, ouchie, hurt, I want to bite you, feed you, nom nom nom. You know, it's kind of like very basic. I guess the best thing to take away is if you find the game being a little bit unfair, or you realize that enemies are targeting you a little bit more than they could be targeting an obvious party member, like a frontliner or something, or somebody standing next to you. If enemies are just specifically skipping everybody else and only going for you, yeah, I feel like you should probably have a chat with the DM about like why that's going on, the reasoning, and then kind of have a discussion between like whether it's fair or not. If it was something like a mind flare, I could see how it is. It'd be like, yeah, I probably don't want the guy in the backline to be healing the rogue or barbarian or whoever they're healing, so I'm gonna try to target them with some sort of a crowd control spell, or maybe hit him a little bit with like a scorching ray. Or do they even have scorching ray? I don't know. You know what I mean? If a creature's intelligent, they can think, oh, maybe I should be a little more strategic. It makes sense. It kind of doesn't make sense for the spiders with 6 intelligence just to target the only healer in the party, because they probably don't even know what healing is. They don't even know a language. They just like go hiss at each other and then make webs. I guess the best lesson we can learn from the day is if you find something being kind of unfair, or you feel like you're being targeted in a game, speak up to your DM and have a discussion about it. Try not to make it heated, but you know, find solutions together or communicate. Anyway, next story. DMPC instantly killed me. This campaign was my 3rd campaign, and I'm still fairly new to D&D at this point, as I had only played one classic 5e campaign. I was only playing homebrews. Real names will be changed to nicknames or character names. This campaign happened a while ago, and I may slip up on details, so I apologize for any inconvenience. The campaign was a homebrew set in a martial arts school. My character named Nail is a wrestler fighter. The other characters were my friend Cyrus, Sorrowwind, and Jenny. Showed up to some sessions, but due to a busy schedule, could not attend. Our characters were young and attended a school set in our teen years, therefore we didn't have much of a backstory, if not any. Looking back now, this is probably the first red flag. As this DM style was very combat focused, I did not encourage RP aspects. Being a new player, I was alienated from role-playing, but as we got later in the year, the campaign got stale and repetitive fast due to this. A nice balance is probably the best thing ever, but it depends on what everybody wants at the table. If everybody just wants to roll dice and do combat, that's completely fine, because everybody's happy over it. People want to do more roleplay rather than combat, that's completely fine too. It's whatever the table wants collectively. But if you have a situation where DM wants one thing but the players want the other, yeah, that can cause a bit of an issue. If that situation happens, you definitely got to talk about making things varied and finding ways that everybody can be happy and enjoying stuff together. I like to think that I have a pretty decent balance between roleplay and combat. Sometimes it depends on the session, it can be a little more combat heavy or roleplay heavy, but at the end of the day I try to keep it varied, to keep it nice and fresh for my players. The first session was really fun for all players enrolling into the school. Nail had to fight Cyrus to get into the school. Cyrus destroyed my character, but due to an unlucky roll at the end plot, I also knocked him down, so we both got accepted. I had a lot of fun during this fight, and during the campaign, Nail and Cyrus would build a relationship together through combat interactions and story. After the first trial, they received a pill each, and my character stole a pill from a weaker opponent. Nail fought the NPC and left on a good cliffhanger. The session was retconned, red flag, due to Jenny not attending. I was pretty upset as it was very easy to bring Jenny into the story as a different student from another group. Nail felt very backseated during the session as I almost repaid the previous session without the fun. Cyrus and Jenny ended up sneaking out of class and investigating an outpost while Nail and Sorrowwind stayed in class. The session was heavily focused, I'm not sure what it means, maybe on the other guys, and I was out of the session. Due to this, I did ask Cyrus, who was way more experienced with downtime and roleplay, how to use my time effectively. The next session was over Discord, and I had a discussion with Cyrus beforehand and gave me helpful advice on how to use the downtime, and I did just that. The session was very focused around Nail and Cyrus and was a fun session. I don't want to get it twisted because the campaign ended badly from this point. I was often enjoying the campaign and the school aspect. Sorrowwind had similar trouble not being included in the campaign. However, this was not due to him being new to D&D, but due to him wanting to be a main character. During level ups, he did not take huge power-ups and take passives due to him wanting the DM to give him an overpowered weapon or ability that only he can wield. More on that later. I'm assuming by power-ups you mean feats, maybe, I don't know. And Sorrowwind is basically just trying to bolster their stats, I guess, to basically be like, I want to be the one with the highest strength or dexterity or whatever, to be able to wield the bestest weapon that only requires my highest strength or dexterity or whatever. Maybe, I'm not sure. I am curious if the main character syndrome thing for Sorrowwind is going to come back throughout the story, and it might be a next red flag, but we'll see. A 3-year time skip within the campaign, our characters had gone from young teens to mid-teens. We had been drafted into a war. So the school campaign took a huge narrative shift, which ultimately led to the campaign to its demise. lack of roleplay and change of narrative, the campaign became very combat focused and was repeating a lot. Another red flag. The campaign was doing nothing new, and from a point of view, our own characters became dull and was not even given rewards. The campaign would be rotated within a month with another campaign which Cyrus hosted, Alien Isolation's Homebrew. Ooh! I think the fresh setting and atmosphere was a welcome change. It made the combat digestible, as the Aliens campaign made you want to avoid combat as much as possible and solve the rooms and puzzles. On the other hand, the martial arts campaign was combat focused. Unfortunately, the Alien campaign came to an abrupt end due to a character death, and I did not get to conclude my character. Even though I'm not a huge fan of Aliens, there was a lot more desire for my character out of others for the campaign. Not only that, Cyrus is a huge fan for everything, felt like a huge love letter to the franchise. In comparison, it felt more like a tick box that the DM was taken off. I think this was the moment you kind of should have realized that, hey, maybe I don't like the way this martial arts campaign is going because there's just sudden shift into being combat only. But this Aliens campaign gets me to do other stuff other than combat, which feels refreshing. Maybe a good balance of the two might be your kind of speed. Maybe this is a self-discovery moment. I don't know. But there's a lot more to this story, so I wonder how bad it gets from there. I mean, I don't want to imagine that you're stuck around through hell and back, but I mean, there's a lot written here, so I can only hope for the best. When returning to the martial arts campaign, this might be my fault, I had no idea what was really happening. Players were dragged into the war because our school/cult did, and from then on, our sessions was dictated by the mood of the DM. In addition, when asked about the campaign, he did not plan too much, and the DM had DM'd himself out in my opinion. Another red flag. We continued the war and I was really disengaged. Jenny showed up one session every 2 months and seemed to butt heads with Sorwin due to a comment made on Discord surrounding D&D. Jenny said they were going on holiday and therefore could not attend the D&D session, which Sorwin replied, "It doesn't make a difference if you show up or not." In my opinion, I think this was the start of a bigger problem, but that is another story to be told. You know, the more I'm reading about this, the more I don't like this Sorrowwind character. Who pissed in no cereal? Jenny is going on a holiday. You wouldn't matter if you showed up anyway. Wow, dude, that's just kind of a dick thing to say. Jenny showed up to the first D&D session after the holiday, and in my opinion was the last good session. Even though I had poor luck rolls, I was hard carried by Cyrus and Jenny. We all still had fun during the session, even when Sorwin had to leave midway during the session. Sorwin had not been a major character in this campaign due to him wanting to have this overwhelming advantage, which he finally got. The party hunted down a dragon into a quarry. The dragon rested peacefully and we had a roleplay scenario go on. However, I think this moment was completely ruined due to Sorwin fusing with the dragon, even though the dragon stated his body could not harness his power. I spoke to the DM about this and asked why he let this happen. And he said to let Sorwin do something. I feel like I'm stopping after every paragraph and I don't mean to do so. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, right? So after Jenny came back from the trip, y'all had a bit of a more fun session because you got to roleplay, and Sorwin left halfway through, and probably maybe for the better because Sorwin don't sound like the pleasant person to play with. But then suddenly DM just allows Sorwin to fuse with the dragon, which it just seems completely out of nowhere, and just to let them do it. What is happening? Is the DM just actually allowing Sorwin their ultimate main character power fantasy here, or what's going on? Or just more DM scheming and trying to freshen things up? With how intensely things went from martial combat training sessions and learning and stuff to war, I feel like the DM kind of had a bit of a change of heart to what they want to run. Or maybe they just wanted to change things up and stuff. But at this point, I'm starting to think maybe DM doesn't even know what they're doing at this point. Maybe they do know what they're doing and just they can't make up their mind on what kind of thing they want to have. Martial arts school, war, fusing with dragons, main character stuff. I don't know. Let's continue. During these last few sessions, the DM introduced his DMPC out of nowhere for narrative reasons and had been there all along, even though she wasn't, and had gone through 3 personality changes. Okay, I feel like this story is going to breakneck speed, and I don't think it's up to the OP. Maybe, but I also feel like this DM is just pulling stuff out of nowhere, like a rabbit out of a hat. Instead of it being a rabbit, it's like, oh, we got war. Oh, we got dragon. Oh, we got player 1 to fuse with the dragon. Oh, we got DMPC that went through this character arc when they never existed in the first place. 3 personality changes, they just appeared out of nowhere. I feel like it's a character that literally just arrived within 5 seconds, and apparently they have this great big lore about them. That's kind of what it feels to me. I don't think this DM knows what they want. They sound like they want a mixed bag of everything, but they can't decide on what thing to stick with. And just pull, like I said, like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, but it's always not a rabbit. It's never a rabbit. The war had to come to an abrupt end, and this was not our main drive for the narrative. Yeah, because they got their DMPC out finally. That is the main drive for the narrative. The DM is already bored with war. I'm done with you. It's like the Andy from Toy Story dropping a toy. It's like, I no longer want to play with you, war. Oh, come here, DMPC. You are my new toy. The second half of the Dragon session, I got really invested into a murder town mystery that was a unique plot point that was no longer explored. A few sessions after, we had made it to the capital city, and I just had enough of the campaign at this point. Even though the DM stated he hated NPCs taking control of the campaign, he forced our characters to make decisions to benefit his DMPC. So he had this whole campaign going that's focused on the narrative of the players, and apparently had a player, Sorrowwind, trying to fuse with a dragon. But we suddenly gotta be, what, dropping that out of nowhere to bring in this DMPC and be like, hey players, you're gonna be now following along and being basically little minions of this DMPC that I put together. I guess. I'm assuming... No, I don't want to assume. There's no point of assuming things, because whenever I assume the best, but it always ends up the worst. I'm gonna stop assuming and just take it at face value. The DM is bored of the war, the DM is bored of the dragon and player fusing together. Here comes my new toy, DMPC. Let's see how this goes. However, I refused the negotiations and did not agree. We began to bicker, and Sorrowwind came up with an ultimatum to help the DMPC. The DM did not agree, and I began to argue I have no relations with the DMPC, and I refused to give my goods from the war to her. In the campaign, she began to charge up a spell, and in character, I refused to fight her, as my character had no reason to fight this character. I was met with an instant death. No saving throws, I was just killed. The DMPC froze Nail into place. It could not make no effort to get out of it. Wow, you know, that's kind of lame. You could have just talked to your players, be like, hey players, I'm tired of the war thing. Do you want to do something else instead? Hey, I have this idea. How about we go back to martial arts or something? Or hey, better yet, ask your players, hey guys, what do you want to do? There's too many situations that happen where DMs just think they know everything that, you know, the players want. And if the players don't want it, we have to just hand-fist it into them until they decide to succumb and just accept it as it is, or kill off their characters. I get it, you're trying to spice things up. But the best thing you can do is by working with your players on how to spice things up instead of adding a random DMPC. They just, what, PK's a character just because, without a death save or anything. Like, you'd realize that what you're doing right now is just being spiteful asshat, and you're just ending a character story, a player character story, just because they said no to your DMPC. When you could have been like, all right, hey player, can we talk out of session and like discuss things, or maybe like, you know, cards down or whatever, and just chat with your players. Talk to your players about what they want from this story, why they don't like the DMPC. Can they change the DMPC to be more likable, more enjoyable? But no, instead this DM is just going like, my character's the best character ever. They're going to be the main focus of the campaign now. And you have to accept it because that's what you've done and that's the agreement you made without actually agreeing to anything. And then maybe agree to the martial arts school of combat and stuff like that, and going through like a some sort of a growth for their characters. But they never agreed to the concept of the war, or main character being a main character and fusing with the dragon, or this DMPC. This is just something DM is pulling out of their, like I said, out of their hat, and just throwing the players, expecting them to just be like, oh my god, DM, this is the greatest thing ever. Oh my goodness, you're the bestest DM ever. Oh my god. I don't know why I went Valley Girl. I have no idea. But either way, they expect the players just to be like, cool, I'm cool with that, I agree with that, instead of, you know, communicating. That's all they had to do, is talk to the players, ask them what they want. Anyway, let's see how this finale ends. I immediately took a breath, gathered my things, and left. We're out in English weather, and I refused to watch 3 hours of campaign I was unfairly killed in. Cyrus and Sorrowwind did tell the DM off, and it was a little awkward for a bit. However, the story has a good ending. Me and the DM are friends and still are today, and if not better friends than we once were. I apologize to the DM for getting heated and arguing, and he handled the situation and came to regret it. He explained he got tired from DMing and regretted it a lot. He said the campaign had a few sessions left, to which I responded, I'm happy to make a new character. I'll play the DMPC to finish the campaign off. We've not continued the session, but I'm happy to inform the DM is now a player with myself and Cyrus and Jenny, hosting as a DM. The new campaign has a roleplay and great combat and have been a better campaign. Even though our characters sometimes butt heads, we have great teamwork and chemistry in combat, and I'm glad events played out the way they did. I was expecting for things to go really bad, especially when it comes to a DMPC story, but man, it makes me so jubilantly happy. I know it looks weird to see me happy, but I am happy. I am very happy to see a story end on such a positive note. Instead of being a big explosion and no lessons learned and no talking, they were just burnt out, trying their very best to keep it going, not sure what direction to take it into, probably panicked, probably freaked out, made this DMPC as a final Hail Mary to be like, hey, let's hopefully spice things up again, it's gonna be great and all, haha. Jenny is DMing right now, gives the DM a little bit of a fresh, clear mind just to enjoy as a player, and maybe somebody else can rotate in after Jenny, and they could just basically have like a little rotation circle with everybody DMing a campaign of some sorts, or one-shots or whatever. This is actually honestly the best solution and the bestest outcome that we could have. Yeah, it doesn't have the great explosive screw you DM or screw you player, but you know what? I'm happy they worked it out, and I'm happy for the players. If any DM out there needs to hear this, I hope you listen well. If you are feeling burnt out and you're feeling tired or feel like your creativity has been drained a little bit and you need a break from the DMing seat, talk to your players. Let them know that. Maybe somebody else can pick up something or try DMing for the very first time and stuff like that. Let your players know. Don't just force yourself to just keep trudging along through the DM burnout. You're gonna hate yourself and you're gonna make a worse situation, a worse game for everybody, and nobody's gonna be having fun. If you as a DM can't have fun, then is it really worth trying to play a game while you're feeling burnt out? I don't think it's worth it. Take a break on occasions. Let your players know. Talk to them. Be honest with them. Let them know you just feel a little bit of a burnout. You just need a little bit of a break, a little refresher. Because we all need breaks. Seriously, this year has been hell. We all need breaks. Take your break. For real. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.